I've seen great results from people with spraying. And you know, if I had a way to do it, I might play around with that. You know, I'm only firing to low temperature. I'm getting what I want, so I'm just going to kind of stick with it.
Several layers of glaze.
Yeah, I usually only like to put 2 layers on to get that, because if I do 3, it's a little darker. So I'm pretty careful to try and get 2 good consistent layers. Okay, one more. I hate having 2 that are the same next to one another, but I might have to. This guy's a little big. I can get him in there. Now, one of the things that I did 2 years ago, this kind of got me on this, was our good friend Greg Seigel passed away. And so one of the first faces that I made, and I don't think I brought it. Yeah, I did. I'm going to pass this around. I made a face of Greg Seigel. And I made that press mold. And if you knew Greg, Greg looked like a pirate. I mean, he had a full beard and a big mustache. And so I started making these Greg Seigel commemorative pieces. And I made them for his family. I made Rebecca and their 2 children mugs that were supposed to be, caricatures of Greg. I made a couple little statues of Greg. I made some shot glasses of Greg. Okay, so there's Greg. Now, all I have to do with this now is pinch this up just a little bit, straighten it out just a little bit. Now, I will have to go back and tool these a little bit, but I'm going to go ahead real quick and just go show you how I like to have a coil on something that's about this size. I'll go back in and touch some things up. For me, I spent so much time making coil pieces that, I've got to, look at me, where would I roll out a coil right here? I can't. Just don't have any space. So what I do is I just take a piece of clay. I need a little more. And instead of rolling it out, what I'll do is I'll kind of figure out how big a diameter it is. I can go back and touch all this stuff up. I'll just make a little coil like this.
Oh.
Yeah.
You love going in circles, don't you?
And here I didn't have to roll it out on the table. I didn't have to have a clean, moist surface. I can make a coil that's 2 inches in diameter, that's maybe a foot across doing this, if I'm doing a coil pot. Now, if I get into the bigger, wider ones, then I'll roll the coil out. Or sometimes I'll just squeeze it out in my hand. So I'll set this on here like that.
I've never seen anyone do that.
It's one of a kind.
I know.
And then I like to kind of thumb it down on the inside first. And I get it thumbed down on the inside so that I know that I've got this rim captured by the coil like this. So when I squeeze it down on the outside, that rim is caught and it's not going to crack or separate usually. Well, it never does. Actually, it doesn't. And I learned from making big coil pots. I used to make a big coil pot by pounding out a slab, cutting a line around it, scoring it, setting that coil on there, thumbing it down on the inside, thumbing it down on the outside, running the tool around it. But you know what? Every now and then they crack. How do you solve that? You put the slab down there, you turn up the edge of the slab. So you got that edge going like that. When you put that coil on there, they don't crack. They just don't do it. But I learned the hard way. And once I figured it out, I thought, wow, I should have figured this out years ago. Because I've done a lot of coil pots. Now, I'm going to very carefully thumb this down on the outside. And then I'm going to pinch it up. after I'm sure that it's secured and sort of attached. And for clay that's this soft, I really don't have to do any slipping and scoring of a coil. Now if I have a pot that's kind of stiffened up, a big jar, I will slip and score that rim sometimes. And, I'm usually the kind of person, if I'm making big pots, I'll start 6. And by the time I get done with the coil on the 6th pot, the first one is sitting there going, where you been? You need to put a coil on it. I've never, ever, ever used a torch because of the way I work. Now, if I was anxious and I had a wet pot, I would use the torch. But I found that I don't need to, the way I'm working. Okay, now obviously, this stein or flagon or whatever you want to call it, it's huge. I mean, it's huge. But it's going to shrink. And I'm going to demonstrate how I do a pseudo braided handle real quick. And then I've got to pinch out a whistle body real quick. Okay, now you can see, this is basically where it needs to be. I can touch up the tops of the heads a little bit. I want to make sure that I have a rim that feels good in the corner of your mouth, which means it needs to be a little bit thin. It can't be too thick. Okay, so that's that. Okay.
Wow.
I'll have to make a handle. Now, if you notice here, oh God, did I screw it up? I did.
Why do you say that?
Well,
No place for him.
I had a place for the handle, and I kind of put it in. See, I have a little place down here where I was kind of lining up the bottom of the handle. Then I'll just make a handle that kind of goes up like this. And I like to keep them fairly close to the pot. Could you name that? These big ones right here, when they're full of beer, they hold a lot of beer. I mean, sometimes the best way to pick one up is like that. But you can pick them up like this. But the best way to do it is get your hand in there and you got it. Okay, now. So I will finish this in my studio. And what was I going to do? A whistle button or something else? Oh, braided handle. Now, I learned this little thing when I was out in Arizona. I was hanging around at the Arizona State Museum. And I was working with some archaeologists. I actually had 5 or 6 jobs doing field work, which is basically working with a shovel and a pick and a screen and a wheelbarrow. It's not very glamorous, but I was allowed to go into the museum in collections, and I had friends who were archaeologists, and they would let me go down in collections, and I could pick things up. And I picked up, anybody ever see the famous bat bowl? It's a mid-raised pot from the Southwest. Famous pot. I picked that up. And my friend Al Ferg, I said, you probably don't want me picking anything up. He goes, pick anything up. Pick anything up that you want to pick up. But if you drop it, I'm going to kill you. Probably with a 3/4 groove stone axe. But this is how the Mimbres and some of those other cultures did braided handles. And this is where I have to add a little bit of water. So I'm going to have 3 coils that are the same length. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this coil and I'm going to cut it into 3 coils that are approximately the same length. And that's good enough. I'll trim them off again. Now, I have to get these things rolled out so they're really long and fairly thin in order to do this. So there's one. And actually, the thinner they are, the better the finished product looks. So there's one. I'm going to set that there. Here's 2. And, you know, those of you who know me, you know I love the clay. And I think that for most of us, if we were all to be asked, one of the first things you would probably say is, I just love the clay. Because it responds to you. You know, you don't necessarily have to have a tool between you and the clay. Okay, there's 2. And here's 3. Now, you could braid these together if you were really good. But there's a little trick. And you'll see what happens here in just a second. Maybe a little thinner. That looks pretty good. Okay, you ready for the trick?
Yeah.
All right. Gotta wipe off the sweat. Here's the trick. Coil number 1. You twist it like so. Now it's not going to be perfect. Oops. But you want it to be. You want it to look like a long